President Biden was reported dead for 3 weeks. I guess it was hard to tell, but he wasn't. He was in fact critical. It took him a year or so, but he got back to health again. However, the attack in London really wiped out quite a lot of the NATO leaders and caused widespread chaos in what was left of NATO. Biden's back, and he's declining to have an election because of what he says is Russian interference. This is not going over well. Various attempts have been made to boost US military personnel numbers because of the shocking losses both in Europe and in Asia.
Come on, stop whining. Your kids are soft. You lack discipline. Well, I have news for you. You're now mine. That's right. You belong to me. You don't have your mommies running behind you anymore and wiping your tush. Oh no. We're gonna turn this mush into muscles. That's right. No more complaining. No more, Mr. Kimball, I need to go to the bathroom. No, nothing. There is no bathroom.
Annie and similar celebrity pushes to join the US military didn't work very well.
Just make sure your microphone is on.
Am I on? There we go. Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, I would like to discuss two amendments that I've offered to the National Defense Authorization Act. My first amendment, Amendment 41, would strike the section of the bill that makes women eligible for the draft. Drafting American wives, mothers, daughters for mandatory military service unnecessarily politicizes military service and would jeopardize the national security of this nation. The purpose of the draft is to rapidly replace combat losses. It has always been about meeting the needs of the armed forces as fast as possible with the best replacements as possible. Men are, by their very nature, the best suited to meet these demands. The effort to draft America's daughters into frontline combat duty will undermine the military's combat prowess, lead to greater wartime casualties, and take away from the defense capacity.
Biden listed these attempts to limit the American draft as anti-American, and to be frank, most Americans by this point agreed with them. The death tolls of military personnel in both Europe and in Asia were devastating. And on a daily basis, Russian bombing and missile attacks are occurring all across North America. Not very many, and most of them are intercepted, but it's daily.
Фигур высшего пилотажа, многоцелевой истребитель самолет продолжает управляемый полет. На высоте около 50 метров катапультируется штурман Владимир Шендрик. На высоте около 60 метров командир экипажа Вячеслав Аверьянов.
Thankfully, China seems to have adopted a policy of armed truce and has stopped their attacks, which they did in the run-up and aftermath of the invasion of Taiwan. As you can see, the use of mothballed and ancient equipment by both Canada and America was absolutely essential and still remains essential after the devastating losses of equipment in Ukraine and then equipment and personnel in both Europe and in Asia. After the fall of Taiwan, an uneasy truce with China continues, but crucially there is no longer any global trade. Eventually we did see reports of the Battle of Taiwan, but strangely they didn't show any at all civilian casualties, of which I'm sure there was an enormous number. The Chinese used a sledgehammer, with missiles, artillery and vast air superiority, followed up by amphibious landings and paratroops on a huge unprecedented scale not seen since World War II. Coupled with a reduction in American armed forces and naval because of the Battle of Europe, this all led to the fall of Taiwan reasonably quickly in about 3 weeks. It helped China that a minority of Taiwanese by that point had seen what happened in Europe and actually felt that joining with China peacefully was probably the way to go rather than fight them off and lose.
Invasion of Taiwan. The democratic island Beijing threatens to unify with the communist mainland. We're surrounding the whole island, says Major General Meng Xiangqing on Chinese state TV.
These ships are equipped with multiple access ramps, usually with one at the stern and one at the aft of the ship, allowing wheeled vehicles to quickly be embarked and disembarked. China's largest ro-ro ferry can hold up to 300 heavy-duty trailers, which can be disembarked in a matter of hours. This translates into an unloading capacity of up to 2,000 tons per hour. According to a study by the PLA Logistics Academy Research Center, a single combined brigade consumes around 600,000 kilograms, or 1 million pounds of fuel per day. In optimal conditions, one of these ships can supply the equivalent of 3 days' worth of fuel in just 1 hour.
China destroying a U.S. aircraft carrier.
That's right. Here's an eye-opener. China's military, that is, destroying the USS Gerald Ford with 24 hypersonic missiles over the course of 20 battles.
How concerned is the U.S. about the Chinese state hacking, recent cyber attack targeting U.S. infrastructure? Does the U.S. believe that despite going after communication systems in Guam, that Taiwan is the real target?
I'm not going to speak to the last part. What I will say is that we are aware of recent activity by a People's Republic of China sponsored cyber actor to develop a presence in digital networks across the U.S. critical infrastructure sector.
As we all know, America did start a draft, and they have included women. They really had no choice.
Is a military draft imminent? The requirements actually to be in the military is significantly higher today than it was, I think, during the Vietnam War. If we get to a draft, it is sort of a break glass. We need to, take out that fire extinguisher because we are being overwhelmed. I would like to think if we are actually unable to respond and our country is being attacked, right, by missiles, and if we needed a draft, that people would respond.
Well, I'm actually currently in the military. Women want to be able to be out in the infantry, to be in spec ops and all that. And I think if they want that, being drafted comes right along with that. If the women can make it at the physical level, that's what they need, because we're not going to leave anyone behind.
I feel like that would be fair, that if women want to join the military, and I feel like there's a lot of women that do and have a lot to offer in the military, that it would be fair if there was a draft for everybody to be drafted. It's probably necessary to have the sign up for the draft.
I think that women should be included in the draft because there's no reason why they shouldn't, and I think that if women can be in frontline positions in the military, they should also be able to be included in the draft.
With equal rights comes equal responsibility, and the responsibility of citizenship to serve your country in a national emergency is paramount.
Canada floated various ideas to deal with the military personnel issue. But after that first devastating winter after the fall of Europe with no global trade, Canada was in an awful state. The national government decided that everybody between the ages of 18 and 70 could now be conscripted if the Canadian Armed Forces and or the Municipal Council had a need for those people and their skills. Basically, it's not a draft. Everybody in Canada between those ages has been conscripted, but most of us have not yet been activated. Most Canadians between 18 and 70 have in fact been conscripted unless they've got medical grounds for not doing so, and medical grounds is really tough to actually use these days. But the vast majority are actually working in their own localities for the local council, doing things like repurposing cannabis greenhouses into fruit gardens and actually putting food down on the ground wherever we can and repairing bomb damage. And a lucky few have had to join the military. Strangely enough, in Canada, both the right wing and the left wing largely agree with national mobilization rather than a draft or selective conscription, A national mobilization is what Canada ended up doing, and so far it's at least putting a bit of food on the table for pretty much everybody.
Canada must build up our military. By doing so, we would strengthen our position. Canada should pursue a higher level of autonomy in key defense production industries, including shipbuilding and aviation, right here at home. Moreover, at the risk of sounding totally out of touch, I'm actually not opposed to the notion of mandatory military service. Military service fosters a greater love of country, a stronger sense with the West's total war.
Permanent residents can now apply to join the Canadian Armed Forces. This follows warnings from the Canadian Military Senior Command about staffing issues and overall readiness in the face of foreign conflicts and domestic disasters.
I am concerned about our capacity writ large. There's just not enough Canadian forces to be able to do everything.
The issue that we have right now with reconstitution, we're seeing also that we don't have the number of applicants showing up at our recruiting center or on forces.ca. So 47.5% of our objective this year. So honestly, when we're looking at reconstitution, we looked at every option.
How many recruits do you hope to get from the permanent resident population?
As many as possible, you know. Again, like I said, we're about 48%.
Canada, of course, had already integrated women in the front lines, and it hasn't been a problem, and it's been really helpful. We effectively doubled our pool of military personnel.
Marine Systems Engineering Officer 212. Marine Systems Engineering Officer.
That's me. Just a second. I am Lieutenant Kayla Bouchard, and I'm the Marine Systems Engineering Officer in HMCS Vancouver. As the head of department, it's really working with and enabling my team. So overall, I've got 55 people that work for me that are marine technicians or firefighters, and what we all do as a team effort is making sure that the ship is able to go ahead and astern in the water, to make sure that we're able to turn whenever we want to, and then to the basics of having lights and making water and making sure that, you know, our sewage system works properly and effectively.
I ditched Kitty and mine RN retired active status with the College of Nurses of Ontario as fast as I could. We kept our heads down, and for a long time we avoided conscription. So 3 years after the fall of Europe and the fall of Taiwan, Canada is starting to recover. Sort of.
The old hydro systems gave us some power. We really needed the power we could get. And of course, mobile radar installations. Vital. Mobile army bases. Hold them up moving before they get hit by a missile. See these all over the place now. Mobile networks. With the bombed out buildings, now the renovations that are going on, it's really hard to get anywhere these days. I guess they've only assumed that our parliamentary process would make us weaker. Here's they were wrong. It's kind of weird what the missiles really hit and what they didn't hit. The Supreme Court is almost rebuilt completely. They never hit the Parliament buildings. Capitol got pounded badly. It's now being renovated. All of the infrastructure works basically been on hold for the last 5 years. Only war essential work's been done. Hopefully that can get changed soon. The fear and panic in the early days was pretty bad, and everybody did everything they could to quickly try and rebuild our economy and get ready for an attack. A lot of the early bunkers are falling apart. To be expected, I guess. Now the focus on rebuilding the damaged buildings in the capital. After 5 years of war, it seems that we're not having to use these. So we've been busy beavers over the last 3 years. We've been creating lots of defence formations on the border with the United States and on our own coastline. We suspect invasion from Russia is going to come, and we're trying to get ready for it. It took a lot of manpower for this and lady power, but...
Over the course of the war, the Canadian military has had to part with essential equipment like ammunition and howitzers. How sustainable is Canada's military?
Apparently very.
This is my destination today, the whole regiment.
So despite my best intentions, I got conscripted. So I'm a medic in the whole regiment. It's a little upsetting because I don't really speak much French. I guess I'm going to have to learn. We're using old repurposed tanks and a couple of smatterings of new ones.
Kitty got conscripted as well. She's operating, I think, in Napanee, in one of the mobile hospitals there that have been set up for casualties. I really didn't want to find myself in uniform, and as you can see, the uniforms are kind of cobbled together. But it is what it is. Nobody asked me for this, and I don't want to do it. And I did my best not to. Oh well. Toodles. That's it for me, Huples Cat. Hope you've enjoyed the latest installment of World War III. This is a fictional series based upon historical precedents. I will remind people that nuclear bombs may or may not be used in this series. They are not going to be used. Much like poison gas in World War II, neither Germany nor the Allies nor even Russia ever used poison gas militarily or on the populations that they were attacking. Germany and Japan did of course use this on prisoners. And quite clearly a World War III scenario is not going to drag on for years if we're using nuclear weapons. Hopefully we will have no World War III and hopefully peace will break out before we get to that point. History suggests I'm an optimist. Have a great day. Toodles. This has been a 2023 Tiny Terrier production. It's far too hot for him today.